Come on, Annie. Let's go to the movies.
This is the Cinereelists, episode 555 and a half. My name is Kyle.
And my name is James.
And we're here to talk about movie.
We're here to talk about movie. Yes.
Yep.
That is true.
No lists, no obsession, just not even movies, just movie.
Right. Yeah. This is a Cinerealist bonus episode.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is Kyle and I watched a movie and we left Zach out of the circle. Does he even know we're recording this?
Yeah, I let him know, and I said,
okay.
hey, we're doing this. If you want to watch and join us, feel free. And he said, have fun. So,
Gotcha.
so I think he is not interested.
AKA Kyle and James watched a horror movie.
Right.
And Zach doesn't care about horror movies generally.
We could probably do our own bonus series of horror movies.
Mm-hmm. Although Zach always surprises me with the horror movies because he claims he doesn't like them, blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden, big fan of Evil Dead 2.
Right.
It's like, okay.
Is Evil Dead 2 a horror movie? Oh, wait, no, I said movie, not movies. We can't be doing that. No. I mean, it's got so much camp to it.
Sure, but it is absolutely in the horror section of the library, of Amazon, of anywhere they're going to categorize movies.
Is it trying to scare you, though, or just kind of like thrill you?
Oh, come on. What is the difference?
I don't remember being scared by Evil Dead 2. It's been a while since I've seen it.
I mean,
there's definitely monsters and ghouls and
sure
things of that.
Again, we're getting off the tracks here from the beginning. But,
oh, okay.
But what's the? How do I even ask this? What's the last movie that legitimately scared you?
Legitimately scared me.
Like the movie was over and you could tell you were still scared. You know what I mean? It did something to your chemistry.
It's been a while. The Orphanage is probably that movie, which I've talked about on this podcast before.
Okay.
I'm sure there's been some since, but when I think about movies that legitimately scared me,
that
I gotta go with The Orphanage as being one of the more recent ones. Yeah.
I've not seen that yet, but I'm going to because I know you rank it so highly. It's in your top 100,
it's
right?
It's a top 100, yeah.
Right, yeah. So I will get to it sooner rather than later just because it seems like it would be a movie up my alley anyway, so.
The lady in the tub in The Shining still scares me. Number 4 movie of all time. Seen it a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm.
I still get creeped out by that woman in the tub.
Sure. I don't get creeped out by that anymore because I've seen it a bunch of times, but I will say that movie did not leave my brain the first time I saw it for months.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the type of movie that I've had dreams about. And yeah, that's a good one. I would say that movie scared me, but I think the last movie that legitimately scared me, and I may have already said this on the show before, I don't remember, is Paranormal Activity 3. This is the last movie that actually shook me. And when I got home, I had to watch YouTube clips, like viral YouTube clips just to calm down.
Yeah. Hereditary shook me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I would say Midsummer disturbed me, but Hereditary
legitimately scared you.
Legitimately scared me, yeah.
Interesting. All right. I mean, I'm not going to make fun of you for that because that is a movie. That is a movie. That is a movie.
Hereditary is definitely a movie. We can agree on that.
Sure. It's not one that got me on that level, but I could see how it could.
Yeah,
for sure. Anyway, we're talking Barbarian today.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, right before we went to record, you told me that your son just lost his tooth. For some reason, this question popped into my brain.
Okay.
Maybe it's not a question, more an observation that I'd like your take on. Is your teeth falling out the one thing in childhood that you absolutely 100% guaranteed is never going to happen to you again. Well, maybe your teeth falling out will happen to you again.
Oh yeah, they can definitely fall
Yeah,
out
take
if you don't
that
take
back.
care of them as you get older. Yeah.
Okay, maybe fall out and be replaced by another.
Like, is your teeth the one example of you lose a part of your body and a new part
Right.
comes in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a lizard in a weird way.
Yes. Right, because you're not it's like a nail is one thing that continues growing. Hair is something that continues growing. But that's literally you have a tooth and then you grow a new tooth behind it that comes in.
Hair is good though. Hair, like your hair falls out and it's not like another one starts growing before the old one falls out.
No, that's once it
Right.
or
So
once the
maybe
follicle stops growing, then you're done.
so maybe hair is the example of this happening. Hmm.
Where you can pluck a hair and then a
And
new one will still come out.
is it a new one or is it what was left in the follicle of the old one?
I don't know enough about the biology of hair follicles to say like if you pluck, are you pulling the entire thing out or is there red? Though I believe the hair follicle is, unless you have the follicle removed, which I think you can do,
Mm-hmm.
even if you, I assume would pluck the entire hair out, it would still grow new hair.
How do you get a hair follicle removed? They fill it in like a hole?
I don't know.
Like with
They
some
I
crazy
maybe
glue, they just kind of inject it right down the hole and it's all plugged up.
or no, because that would cause like a giant pimple. Like I think maybe you can actually get like the actual little follicle factory pulled out or something like that.
Why would anybody do that? I can't think of a
uh,
reason.
Maybe you want to be bald.
I guess. I don't know. I mean, I guess you could do it if you wanted to like shape your eyebrows permanently. You could get rid of the ones that you don't want or something. I could
The
see that.
flyaways, maybe, yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely something to think about.
I'll be doing some Googling later.
It's something to think about. That's for sure. Thank you for joining us for this episode 555.5. Hey, it's 4 5s. We did not do that on purpose.
No, it just kind of worked out that way.
Right. Before we jump into Barbarian, I need to remind you there's a video version of this podcast. Go to YouTube, check it out there. You can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Cinereelists. Get extra after show audio. I was actually talking on Zoom with good listener Troy, helping him out with something like a technical issue.
Oh, yeah.
And the topic of another listener call-in show came up. We got to do that, Kyle.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
was
that
fun.
was, I mean, that was something that was created out of COVID, I believe, because we were on Zoom anyway, and everyone was on Zoom. So we thought, hey,
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, we can do that again.
And now COVID is 100% gone, and here we are still on Zoom.
No one dies of COVID in the U.S. anymore.
Right.
Not happening. Do you hear that they're calling the new variants now the Scrabble variants because they're like X and Q and all these weird letters?
No. Would they
Yeah.
just run out of normal names because there's so many variants, or what's the?
No, they're all like Omicron BA 1.1X or whatever version of Omicron they are. So I just have heard them called the Scrabble variants.
Interesting. I need to get my third booster. Third? Yeah, I think it's the third booster.
That's it, bivalent one, or whatever it's called.
Whatever the current one is.
Yes.
That's out right now. That's the one
Yep.
I need. But every time I do it, it makes me feel like crap for like 48 hours. And I know I still need to do it despite that. But it's hard knowing like I have to schedule feeling like crap.
I read that feeling like crap after a COVID booster
Mhm.
is a sign that your immune response is kicking in. Like that you're responding well to the vaccine.
Sure. Oh, I have no problem with.
Yeah.
I assume it's doing its work, and I should do it because it's the right thing to do and the safe thing to do.
Mhm.
But it still sucks knowing, like, okay, I got to find, 36 hours approximately where I don't really have to use my brain for much because I'm not going to want to. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
my industry is a creative thing and my hobbies are a creative thing, and so if I feel like crap, I'm not gonna be able to do those things. And it's hard to find 36 hours where I just I'm like, okay, these are the 36 where if I feel like crap, it's okay.
Yeah, do it on a Friday and just there goes your weekend.
I know. Anyway, speaking of Patreon, if you're a Patreon supporter, you're hearing this now, which means you're hearing it early. And if you're not a Patreon supporter, you're hearing it later because you're not a Patreon supporter. If you were, you would have already heard it.
Yes, non-Patreon supporters, your now is Patreons before.
Right.
And Patreons now is non-Patreons later.
That's exactly what I was saying, only worse.
But our now is everyone's before.
Sure. This is like, what do they call it? Marvel, the alternate timelines? Or
yes.
Multiverse.
Yeah, it's our multiverse.
Right. If you're in the Patreon multiverse, you've already experienced this because you're experiencing it as we speak. And if you're not in the Patreon multiverse, then you're hearing it now, which is later than all the Patreons heard it. Because one of the perks of being a Patreon is if we finish something early, we will always give it to them first. They get early access to anything that's, pre-recorded in advance. And since I'm going to New Jersey, I guess we'll blame it on that. We're recording this in advance. So, bottom line, you should leave us an Apple Podcast review. 5 stars only. Or send us an email, heyguys@cinereelists.com. I'm especially curious if you've seen the movie we're going to talk about today, Barbarian. And if you have seen it, what'd you think?
Want to know? It's a movie worth talking about. Hence why we're here.
Yeah, we should say that Kyle suggested we do a main review on this, and Zach completely ignored him in the chat. And then a week later, he hit me up and said, "Did you watch it yet? I got to talk about this with somebody." And I was like, "I will watch it. We will talk about it." So,
and Zach was like, "You two kids have fun."
Right. Exactly. So I had heard good things. I had heard it's a movie that you can definitely talk about. So I was in, and here we are. We've both seen it. We're going to talk Barbarian right after this clip.
Hey. The laundry's still in wash. But I thought, I'm wide awake, so it's gonna be a bit nut. I thought I'm gonna have some of this here wine, but I didn't want to open it before you got out of the shower because I noticed you didn't drink your tea, and I totally get that, by the way. I mean, you don't know me, and this is a really weird situation. It makes total sense, but I thought that you might want some of this. But if I open it while you weren't here, I'm sorry, I'm rambling. Jesus Christ. I thought you wouldn't want any if you didn't see me open it, so I waited.
That was Barbarian, a 2022 American horror film written and directed by Zach Kreger in his solo directorial debut. The movie stars Georgina Campbell, Bill Skarsgård, and Justin Long, amongst others. The official IMDb plot synopsis for Barbarian is: a woman staying at an Airbnb discovers that the house she has rented is not what it seems. I mean, it seemed like a house. I think it was a house throughout the movie.
Yeah, I would say
it was also an Airbnb.
It was an Airbnb.
It was both a house and an Airbnb. I don't know what they're talking about.
And I'm going to say right now, if you want to see this movie, I would stop listening.
Oh, even to whether we liked it or not?
Yeah, I really think all you should know going into this movie is it's a woman in an Airbnb and there's something amiss. Because I think this is one of these movies where the less you know, the more enjoyable it could be.
Okay. Well, let's just say this. We're going to do a non-spoiler review in short and then go immediately into spoilers because this movie's been in theaters. It's now out on VOD. I think it's been out for a week or so. So if you haven't gotten to it and you want to know nothing, 100% zero more less than I already read, then stop it now, I guess.
And come back later.
And come back later. If you've already seen it, which maybe you have because it's been out there, listen on. Or if you don't care, you could listen on as well. But we will do a non-spoiler review, very short one, and then immediately go into spoilers, and we'll let you know when that happens. So here we go. 100% non-spoiler review in short. Kyle, what did you think of Barbarian?
I think in the end, I did not like this movie.
What? And you had me on here to talk about it?
Yes.
Is it because you don't know if you like it, and so you just have to talk it out, and maybe I can convince you that you should like it?
That could be part of it. I'm
Okay.
mixed on this movie.
Okay.
For me, it's the third act of this movie that lost me, and we'll get into this in spoilers.
Okay.
Because I think this movie has some interesting ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and I think this movie is structured in a unique way that I was not expecting.
Sure.
And there are definitely things that happen that caught me off guard,
Mm-hmm.
both narratively and what I saw on screen.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third act for me kind of threw it all out the window for a different kind of movie than what the first two acts were giving me. And I was liking what the movie gave me, and I did not like where it ended up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I will say 100% spoiler free that Act 1 set me up for a movie that I've seen a million times.
Mm-hmm.
Then Act 2 was confusing, but in a good way. And then Act 3, I loved.
You loved Act 3. Okay. This would be some good discussion.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I thought the filmmaking was very competent for somebody's directorial debut.
Mm-hmm.
I think it took chances in a lot of the right places. And it has some like relevant Hollywood commentary in it that I was surprised by, was not expecting that from this at all.
Mm-hmm.
Never saw a trailer, which is helpful because I still haven't seen a trailer. I don't know how much of that is in the trailer, but
my understanding is the trailer is just Act 1.
okay. Well, that makes sense because that would be a good way to sell this movie.
Right. Yes.
Yes. Because the most surprising stuff is not in Act 1 for sure.
No.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Is it going to be like a classic that is in my top 20 at the end of the year? I don't know. It might be at the bottom of a top 20.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that, the possibility of that. But yeah, it's not gonna, stick with me like It Follows did, or The Babadook or something like that. I'm not sure it has enough to say to like break those barriers. But overall, I thought it was refreshing and definitely an elevation over your typical orphan Annabelle, what's the company that's releasing Blumhouse fare that we've gotten in the last 5-10 years. So yeah, I thought it was unique and interesting and a fun watch, which is not always the case with these kind of movies.
So I'm not mad I saw it. And like this will not be at the bottom of my 2020 list. It might be on the bottom half. But it's not one of these movies where I got to the end like, oh, that was stupid. Why'd I waste my time with that? So I don't think it's a waste of time.
Wait, the bottom half of your total list or your top 20?
Sorry, bottom half of my total list for 2022.
Okay.
Yes. It will not make top 20.
Okay.
No. But it was not a waste of time either. And I'm not mad that I saw this movie.
Sure. Sounds good. Anything else we can say? Spoiler. I'll say the lead actress I thought was great. I felt like she was wooden in the beginning, and then that makes sense later.
Yep.
To me. I thought Justin Long was fun to watch on screen.
He was like, he played that character very, very well.
Yeah. And the guy at the beginning that I'm forgetting the name of was
Bill Skarsgård.
That was Bill Skarsgård? I thought Bill Skarsgård was the guy with the car.
guy with the car.
Mm-hmm.
No, Bill Skarsgård was the guy in the Airbnb.
Okay, at the beginning?
Yeah.
I did not
He's
recognize him.
well, he's Pennywise from the It movies.
Yeah, I didn't recognize him.
Well, yeah, because Pennywise has got all the makeup on.
Well, yeah, but I've seen him in other things other than
Okay.
as Pennywise. Okay, fair enough. Bill Skarsgård, his performance was great as well.
Oh, the guy in the car.
The guy in the car.
Yeah, I from like the middle, from like between Acts 2 and 3.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah,
I know
sure.
you're talking about. That was not Bill Skarsgård, but I know you're talking about now.
And the score was all right. I don't really remember much of it, which means it didn't get in the way and also wasn't notable. And I thought the runtime was perfect.
Yeah, just under 2 hours.
Mhm.
And I think we should say that also this movie is currently on HBO Max.
Mhm.
And it's getting a lot of play on HBO Max right now. Like on my Letterboxd, once it went online on streaming, my top movies that my friends were watching was all Barbarian.
Nice. Awesome. Anything else, or should we letterbox it and roll right into spoilers?
Let's letterbox it and move on.
Okay. I will give Barbarian a 4.
Oh, wow. I'm going to give this a 2.5.
All right. A 4 and a 2.5 for Barbarian. We are going to talk spoilers right now about the same movie. So if you don't want to hear spoilers, you should pause it right here. If you don't care or you've already seen the movie, then listen on, because the rest of the episode, we're going to talk openly about Barbarian. So the movie, just for those who haven't seen it and don't care about spoilers, is set in like a 3-act structure where literally it jumps time. The first first third of the movie is today. And this woman goes to an Airbnb. She finds a stranger, also has it rented at the same time, a man. She's a young lady, maybe in her mid-20s or so. And so it's raining. It's in a bad neighborhood. They assume they're not going to be able to solve this tonight. So they decide to stay in the same Airbnb together, even though they're strangers. And meanwhile, she discovers that under the house is a sequence of tunnels and a weird, creepy room with a video camera in it and a blood handprint on the wall.
Yeah.
And so she's looking for the guy that was also in the Airbnb. She thinks he's down this tunnel. She goes down there to find him, and this crazy, ghoulish figure comes out of nowhere and kills the guy in front of her in the tunnel.
And then end of Act 1.
Smash cut to Southern California.
That's like 45 minutes. So let's talk. I think we should talk about Act 1. Okay. So that's the first 45 minutes of the movie, right? And you've got this guy who's also there. That's Bill Skarsgård. He's kind of like too nice to be good, where you start to feel like this guy might be creepy. Like you're thinking like this is some sort of maybe home invasion horror movie, or he somehow like was able to stay in the house for nefarious purposes. Like,
sure,
you don't quite trust him.
Well, I mean, the filmmaking is pretty intentional in making sure that innocuous statements are framed in the most suspicious of ways.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, like, if you actually read that text on a piece of paper, it probably wouldn't be suspicious at all. And he's not necessarily even acting suspicious. It's just every time he delivers a line, the framing of the shot makes it seem that in combination with the actress's reaction to it gives you the feeling that he's acting suspicious.
Yeah. So the first part where I started having a little bit of, I was lacking my suspension of disbelief, and I know this is a horror movie, and I totally get that, like, in horror movies, characters make certain decisions. She finds, like, in the basement first this hidden room with a video camera and the bloody handprint and a bed, and you're like, okay, well, can probably guess what's happening in there. And then she tells Bill Skarsgård, hey, there's something weird in the basement. He goes down there, starts screaming. She goes back, can't find him, and then finds there's another hidden door, which leads to these like pitch black caverns. At that point, and she goes searching for him. And at that point, I was like, okay, I know this is a horror movie and people make decisions, but she met this guy yesterday.
Mhm.
And at what point do you say, this is weird, I'm gonna go upstairs and call the cops, and we'll let them, like people who have guns and flashlights,
Mhm.
figure out what's going on here instead of following him down into this. I mean, what is like a underground mine shaft is the best way to describe this thing.
Sure. I mean, I agree. I don't think I would go down there.
Mhm.
But we should say again, for people who haven't seen the movie, they do turn around her suspicion on him. Like they find common ground about things, and she realizes that he's just a dude, and that's
Yeah.
why, you know what I mean? He doesn't really have any, to the best of her snap judgment, after having a cordial, fun conversation with him, she decides he's not scary, or he's not going
Right.
to do anything, and she starts to trust him in a reasonable way you would trust somebody that you haven't known very long. You know what I mean? Like, she's not giving him every trust, but she's decided he doesn't have ill will towards her.
Right. He's genuine. He really is fine sharing this Airbnb until they figure out what's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so by the time that he's down in the caverns, first of all, she didn't know the caverns were there until she was downstairs. And she's hearing him screaming.
Correct. Yes. And
And
that's when
so-
she figures out there's another hidden door to these caverns.
Right. And what we don't know about her, which we find out in Act 3, is that she has a very strong drive to not leave people behind and to go save people. You know what I mean? Like,
So how did you pick that up? Because
the
'cause
decision
I
to go
didn't get
down
that.
and get him at the beginning
Yeah.
only makes sense in the context at the end. You know what I mean? Like, the fact that she reacted the way she reacted at the end makes why she did what she did at the beginning makes sense.
Okay.
Like, she's down there, she hears screaming down a dark staircase into
Yeah.
caverns, and most people, probably myself included, hopefully I'll never be in that situation, but probably myself included, would be like, I'm getting somebody who gets paid to deal with this stuff.
Right. I'm not dealing with this. Yeah.
Right. But some people are much braver than me and would be like, that person needs help, I'm going down.
All right. When we get to Act 3, I'm interested to hear your reasoning.
I don't know if
But
it's
yeah,
reasoning. It's
or-
just the
How her
character
character was set up
quality
in
was
the end there to
consistent.
show it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so she goes down there. He dies. What else do we have to say about?
Right. It's this naked ghoul like comes out of the shadows.
Obviously female naked ghoul.
Right. Yes. Smashes his head in,
Mhm.
and then cut to Justin Long in like a convertible. Right.
In sunny California.
Right in
in
California,
the hills of Hollywood.
But one more thing about Act 1 that surprised me, which I liked
Mhm.
and confused me, is right. She arrives at this house. It's raining. It's dark. You know she's in a neighborhood. You see like the outlines of other houses,
Mhm.
but that's it. The only one with lights on is this Airbnb. And then the next morning, she goes outside, and you realize that she's in an abandoned neighborhood. Like every other house is falling apart.
Mhm.
And at first, I thought like, dude, is this a time travel movie? Like, what happens? And then I just realized, oh no, she's just in a terrible neighborhood without knowing it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and somebody probably fixed up this house and just rents it on Airbnb, and it probably doesn't
Yeah.
get rented very much because of the neighborhood and the location, I would guess.
And she had an unsettling interaction with a guy outside the house too.
A homeless guy.
Remember the guy running at her and screaming at her.
Yep.
Which is also another horror trope. I'm like, well, gee, I wonder who that guy is in this story.
Sure.
Anyway.
All right. So, Act 2, smash cut to Justin Long in his convertible. He's having a great day in his convertible, singing along to music, and he gets a phone call from his agent and a PR person, I think.
Yeah.
Possibly, something like that. We find out he's an actor who has been accused of sexually assaulting a former castmate, and that this news is going to go public tomorrow. and the movie he's been working on or working towards is not going to happen. And basically, his whole life explodes like in this one phone call.
Yeah, I think it was a pilot for a TV show,
Sure.
and he is being accused by the lead actress, his co-star, of
Mhm.
assaulting her.
Sure.
Yeah.
So he pulls over and I don't remember exactly what happens next. But anyway, eventually what he decides to do, because he no longer has any money coming in because all of his projects are canceled, he decides he's going to fly to Michigan where he owns an Airbnb property or multiple Airbnb properties, one of them being the house that was in the first third of the movie. And he's going to fly to Michigan and put it up for sale to get some quick income. And so he flies to Michigan. He stays in his own Airbnb.
He finds luggage in it.
Right. And they give us a timeline that it's been about 2 weeks since the incident in the caves underneath has happened.
That's right. Yes.
Yep. So you got this guy who is accused of something awful, who isn't necessarily running away, but is not taking responsibility for his actions, I guess. He's not admitting that he's done anything wrong. That's for sure.
He kind of admits it to his friend. Remember, they're at the bar.
He makes excuses for it.
Right, but like you get the impression that he did it. Like, he's saying to his friend, he was like, oh yeah, we had sex. Like, she just needed a little persuasion. Right. And I was like, okay, well, yes, you obviously did what you're being accused of.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, he doesn't fully confess like the lengths or the actual, you know what I mean? In his mind, it was still justified.
He thinks it was consensual. He thinks he did nothing wrong.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So we as an audience, before other things that happened in the movie, were just like, okay, he obviously did it and has not come to terms with his guilt in the matter, or at least he's trying to convince himself out of it or something like that. And we tend to not like when people do that.
Right.
And so we're already kind of not on his side. And he's also kind of a jerk to the people who rent out his Airbnb. He's generally a jerk to everybody. He's a Hollywood jerk, I would say.
And Justin Long, who is probably not a jerk in real life, is playing it very, very well. He's very convincing as this a-hole.
Right. But like I thought a cartoony but kind of realistic way.
Right. He's playing it up a little bit, but it wasn't over the top yet.
He's not screaming at the top of his lungs at everybody. You know what I mean? He's not.
Yeah. Right. He's right. Yeah. Third act, when we get to the third act, that's where things lost me. We'll get there with his character too.
So now he's in this Airbnb that has all this luggage and toiletries from the prior, people who stayed in his Airbnb. They're all over the place, and there's cars in the front yard that are not his. He's trying to figure out what's going on, and he discovers the bedroom downstairs, and then he discovers the path downstairs to the dark caverns. He goes down there.
Well, so his reaction is great because he discovers these and he thinks, is this added square footage?
Right. He's all excited about it.
So he's like in this room with a video camera, a bloody handprint, and a dilapidated bed, like measuring the square footage. And then he finds the cavern and he's like in this pitch black cavern measuring how long it is. And it's that I found that pretty funny. Like,
no, it was really funny.
Yeah, he's like, these people find this cavern and freak out. He's like, ooh, square footage. Like, not even thinking about why is there a tunnel under my house?
Yeah, he's clearly myopic on what he wants, and also it's a stark contrast to why she went down there compared to why he went down there.
Right. Yep.
Like, he had no problem going down because it added square footage to his house. Had no question as to why that bedroom existed with the camera. Whereas she questioned all of those things and still went down.
Yeah.
So then he's downstairs. He runs into the tall, lanky female naked ghoul who chases him around. And eventually he falls into a pit where he finds the girl from the first segment.
who like shushes him.
Right. Who shushes him and says, "Don't say anything." And she's gonna treat you like a baby. Just act like a baby or something like that.
Oh yeah. So okay. So there before he sees this woman,
Mm-hmm.
he finds the room, like kind of like her room with the red lights and the breastfeeding video playing.
Mm-hmm.
Does she find that room also when she goes down? I
No.
don't.
I think she
does
runs into
not.
the other Airbnb guest before any of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't remember if we saw that room once or twice.
I don't believe so.
Okay. And is it at this point, is this when it then cuts to the flashback? Or
Yes.
I feel like he falls in this pit, the gate gets closed by this naked hulk of a woman,
Mm-hmm.
and then he sees the first guest, the other woman.
Then we get the flashback.
And then we get the 80s flashback.
Right. Smash cut to the 80s. You're at the house in the neighborhood. All the other houses are nice and new and looking good. That's how we know it's earlier. And this creepy single dude lives in the house and drives to a True Value type store and gets a bunch of diapers and formula and
Plastic sheets,
baby stuff. And he's creepy and he drives back to the house and
he follows a woman home,
right.
pretends to be like a power and light worker.
Mm-hmm.
And while inspecting her house, unlocks a bathroom window. So we kind of figure, okay, this is how he finds his victims.
Mm-hmm. Or gets access to them anyway.
Right.
And then he goes back to the house, and I don't remember when we find out that like he actually had children with these abducted women.
Yeah, so we see him just walk to the basement,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's it. And I liked how the whole sequence was shot like very bright. It was shot in like a 4:3 aspect ratio,
Mm-hmm.
and almost with like a fisheye, not quite a fisheye lens, but everything was very sort of single point perspective. And
It's very Wes Anderson.
yes, yeah, right. It was the Wes Anderson part if you're following a serial rapist,
Sure.
which we figure. Yeah. So all of this, I'm on board for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I'm creeped out by this long hair, gray skinned, naked woman who's got teeth and bashes people's heads in.
Mm-hmm.
I like that this movie starts with, two people in a house that's creepy and then gives you a complete left turn, right? Where you kill off Bill Skarsgård in the first 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I like Justin Long. I think his character's great. I'm on board all the way through this stuff.
Mm-hmm. So at what point were you not on board?
So it's third act starts.
Uh-huh.
This
is sounding like a 5-star movie to me so far.
They're back in this grate, right, in this pit.
Mm-hmm.
And right at this point, the woman, the actress name is Georgina. I can't remember what Tess was. That her character's name?
I could tell you here.
Okay, I just want to call her the woman because there's multiple women. Okay, so we'll call her Tess. So Tess and Justin Long are in this. They're trapped in something. Yeah, and Tess pretty much says like, "You're her baby now," or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we see this giant, like through the top of this grate, this giant milk bottle shows up, like with a rubber nipple on it. And Tess drinks from the milk bottle. And then the milk bottle is offered to Justin Long's character, and he's totally creeped out by it. And at this point, this creature woman like opens the grate, jumps in, grabs Justin Long, and like jumps out of this cavern or out of this pit holding him.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wait, is she a superhero? And this is where the movie, it just started to lose me, because you're right. You eventually start to figure out that this guy from the flashback has been abducting women,
mm-hmm.
raping them, apparently then raping his now children for these abductions, the products of this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of explains that like this woman is like someone at one point says, "Oh, she's a copy of a copy of a copy."
Mhm.
And I'm like, "Okay, so this guy was doing this stuff in the 80s, so it was 40 years ago.
Mhm.
How many how many
Iterations.
iterations is this actual woman we're seeing? Because this woman herself seems like she could be 40 or 50 herself.
I don't know.
I'm like, it's not like he's been doing this for a century. Like he's been doing this for 40 years, and if you do the creepy math of like this is only maybe his now, like this is only maybe the third iteration of incest,
Mhm.
and is superhuman strength a byproduct of incest?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what her life was down there.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe she was
working out a lot.
yeah.
I don't. So okay, we can keep going, but
And I don't know, like I don't want to be this is gross, but like what's the youngest age a woman can have a child? A
I
child
mean,
can have a child. 13, 12?
whenever they start having a period, this
Right.
podcast is going in a weird direction.
That's what I'm saying. Like if you want to try to do the math, we could probably justify somebody like 15 to 20 years old being a copy of a copy of a copy within 40 years.
Yeah.
And they just look like that because it's a tough life of never seeing sunlight.
Oh no, it's like the look didn't bother me.
Mhm.
It's this woman creature monster shows
Being
feats of
strong.
like superhuman strength. Like at one point she breaks through a concrete wall.
Sure.
And at that point, I was like, oh, okay, like now this is a monster movie. Like this was an interesting movie because Justin Long, he gets away from this creature. This creature like tries to breastfeed him.
Mm-hmm.
He gets away. He actually finds this guy from the flashback
Mm-hmm.
in like his underground bedroom. He's still living underground there. And I'm not even sure how big these caverns are. It seems to be like miles of caverns.
Mm-hmm.
Finds all these tapes, which I'm like, dude, like if you see a bunch of tapes labeled with women's names on them, you probably don't need to watch them. You can probably guess what it is.
Sure.
This old guy ends up shooting himself. So now there's a gun introduced into the mix. Right. So like all this is interesting of like, okay, here's this poor woman who's been assaulted herself, who's a product of assault,
Mm-hmm.
who's been, her only life has probably been this cavern. I agree with all those things,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like she just wants to be a mother because like she's been watching this video from the 80s and that's what she thinks she's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she can't bear children now because she's a copy of a copy of a copy. So she has this instinct. Like that's all very interesting to me. And then it becomes a monster movie at the very end.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I was like, like.
So your issue
so
is she
close.
seemed stronger than she should have been.
No, my issue is she becomes a literal like Michael Myers kind of monster where she's, leaping out of pits. She's jumping through concrete walls. She's falling off of water towers and surviving. Like it's just it became too cliche horror of like the unstoppable killing machine, even though she's not a killing machine.
Mm-hmm.
And
she's
just
kind of a killing machine.
Well, yeah. Yeah,
I mean, she can also be a victim of somebody
Right.
else, but she's also a killing machine.
So I just think this movie had so many interesting ideas and then kind of threw it out at the very end for some horror cliches. Even Justin Long, like they get out of the house and Justin Long at one point is like, I'm not a bad person. I'm just a good guy who did a bad thing. And like, even that dialogue was so on the nose of like Me Too commentary. And it does not bother me whatsoever that they had the Me Too plot line, but like just his dialogue was like first draft dialogue for that stuff.
Well, I think that's a defense that's been used. And so
yes.
In the context of an Instagram post, it's eye roll inducing, right?
Right.
In the context of this movie, it's not just an eye roll. It's okay. At its face, that is a ridiculous thing to say.
Right. Yeah.
Especially because that character does not, he's justifying any action as I'm a good person that might do a bad thing.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know what I
but
mean? Like
like
when at the
the
end,
minute-
when he throws her off he's the same bad person he was when he did whatever he did, you know, to his castmate.
Mhm.
He's just always going to choose the selfish thing. And so he's
Right.
not a good person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's not a
no,
good person that does bad things. He's just a bad person.
But I don't think the movie needed to say that. Like, I knew he's a bad person who thinks he's good. I don't need him to be like, I'm a good person who did a bad thing. It just seemed unnecessary.
I don't know. I liked that line because it just reiterated that this
Okay.
dude is so far up his own butt that he
Yeah.
could honestly say that seconds before he makes, you know, the most selfish decision one could make in that situation.
And then to justify, he was like, you were slipping anyway. Like,
Right.
It's just the whole.
Just constant justification for
Right.
doing an awful
Yeah.
thing.
Yep.
I don't share the disappointment with the turn of the, you know, ghoulish entity that's never seen sunlight having more power than your average human.
She gets pinned between a car and the house at one point, and then they turn around and she's gone.
Sure.
And I was
like I said, I didn't have a problem with any of that. It didn't
yeah,
bother me.
it was too
the
far
first
from me.
time you see her, you can tell that she's not what you would think of as a typical human.
Right.
Not only because of what she looks like, but because of what she does. In the part of the movie you like, she does a superhuman thing.
where she leaps out with
She leaps out of total darkness. I don't want to get too graphic, but when she kills the
head,
Airbnb guest, that's not something that your average person could or would do. Right?
No, like her actions, I understand because of like both her tragic past and her upbringing, if you can call that. Like,
Sure.
I understand her actions do not shock me. It's just her amazing strength and resilience and ability to survive anything. That was a bridge too far for me.
I hear you. And it was not a bridge too far to me.
Okay,
for me. I liked
totally
it.
fine.
I liked it. I like the idea of you know, like a Freddy Krueger movie where Freddy Krueger is a real guy
Mhm.
who gets trapped in an otherworld dimension. You know what I mean? And he becomes a demon and all these other things. And he deserves this fate because in Freddy Krueger lore, he, you know, caught and molested kids. So that's why that's why he's burned from head to toe, because he literally came from hell up into your dreams type of thing. He's sent to hell for his sins and then sent back up to Earth to recruit more kids in their dreams. That's like the basis of Freddy Krueger.
Wasn't he like as the living Freddy Krueger? Was he like burned in a shed or something by the parents of the victims?
Yeah, I believe
Okay,
so. Well, I think
yeah.
they later on build onto the.
Oh, is that part of the lore? Later
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been a while since I've watched all the Freddy Krueger movies, but there's been some revisions and retouches here and there. Anyway, this movie, there's no inclination that there's anything supernatural going on or anything like that. I'll give you that. And so we're to assume that everything we're seeing exists in the real world.
Yep.
But I'm fine with a little exaggeration for the sake of suspense or excitement or any of those types of things. I also think it demonstrates the character of the ghoulie victim, in that she only wants one thing. She's been bred, and it's been drilled into her via those videotapes that this is why she exists.
Yeah.
To take care of her baby.
She's a tragic character.
Right.
Yeah.
She's convinced that the test character is her baby, and she will do anything to get to it. And so I thought all of that, peel herself off a car that she just got hit by. You know what I mean? Like all of those things, while ridiculous, were motivated
So
by the story.
The homeless guy, like they get out of the house. the homeless guy that chased Tess at the very beginning, who's obviously warning her, which I mean, that was like a whatever. I knew what was happening there. It didn't bother me at the time.
Mhm.
He like brings him back to the water tower or something. They think they're safe, and you know, they say to the homeless guy like, "How do you know she won't get in here?" And he's like, "Oh, in the last 20 years she never has." And then of course I'm like, well, here she comes, and immediately she busts through a concrete wall, rips his arm off, and beats him with his own arm. And I
Sure.
think maybe that was the moment that the movie lost me. Like, okay, she got pinned by a car. She's missing. Okay, fine, whatever. But when she breaks through the concrete wall, rips the arm off, and beats the guy with it, I was like, okay, I see what's happening now.
See, to me, that was just kind of like silly, and I was there for it
But
because
see,
like
the movie
a lot of
wasn't
this stuff is silly.
The movie wasn't silly or campy up to this point. It was kind of tragic, and then it became silly and campy.
I think I disagree. I
Wait,
think there's a tone of like, maybe not silliness, but like not completely seriousness, especially by the time you get to the Hollywood stuff. Like
With
maybe
Justin
the
Long.
first segment, it's treated very seriously, but
Yeah.
the moment Justin Long comes in and he's like elevated, his character is elevated beyond what the two characters we've seen so far. I think at that point, this movie's telling you, we can do whatever we want. We're going to play with the tone here. We're going to move around in time. We're going to completely change the location from Detroit to LA out of nowhere with a character you haven't seen 45 minutes in. Yeah, I think the movie is pretty playful in an interesting way that not too many horror movies dare to be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it's interesting. Like, even though it wasn't my favorite, we're still have been talking about it for an hour now or whatever. So
Sure. Okay, so let's jump to the very end.
yes,
And they've fought their way out of the house. Both Justin Long and the Tess character. So AJ and Tess have fought their way out of the house, and they're being chased by the
creature.
They call it Mother.
Yes,
the
that's
Mother.
right. The Mother.
So we'll call it the Mother. We're almost done, but we'll give all these people names.
Yeah, I didn't even know AJ was his name.
So they're being chased by the Mother, and they climb to the top of a water tower. And in an effort to save himself, Justin Long's character, aka AJ, throws Tess off the water tower, and the Mother follows her off, jumps off the water tower to save her, and does save her from falling off the water tower. Then,
well, I assume Tess lands on the Mother is what has. That's the only way. It's not like she grabbed her. They both fall off.
Oh, I got that Mother caught up to her on the way down because Mother jumps after her. She does.
Right, exactly.
After she falls. Got
under her
and then rolled so that she would hit first.
Yes. No, I agree.
Okay. That's saving somebody.
That's like Fast and Furious saving somebody. I don't know if in real life, but I guess at this point we know this is a superhuman creature. So
I mean, they're
within the logic of the movie. Yes,
they didn't show all that happen, but that's the only way the bodies are in that position.
Right.
Is if somebody intentionally does something like that, whether they could physically or not. That's how the bodies end up.
If you fall off a water tower and then I jump after you and I catch up to you and I somehow like tuck and roll so I land first, you're still probably gonna die.
That's true, but you also still tried to save me.
I did still try and save you though, yes. But we've established that this Mother has got superhuman abilities, so it's within the logic of this movie that she could survive this fall and cushion Tess from splatting on the ground. So I'll give you that. Tess, who's been shot, by the way, by AJ back in the caverns with the gun that was found.
Accidentally.
Yeah, accidentally. Yeah, but
I'm not trying to defend the guy, but that one was accidental.
No, that was, they were in pitch black caverns. He sees something, and of course he's going to shoot it. I understand that. Like, it wasn't like a,
I mean, it does fit with his character not to check.
Yeah.
To be like self-centered enough to be like, I don't know what that figure is, but I'm shooting it.
But I mean, I don't know. If I was in the same if I was in the same scenario and I had a gun and
Maybe you'd do the same thing.
I'm not saying that. I would be like, "Are you the crazy lady?" and then wait
Sure.
for a response. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay. So then Tess survives the fall.
Yep.
And AJ comes down off the water tower and he's like trying to justify. He's excited that she survived it, but also trying to justify why what he did by throwing her off was not the wrong thing to do.
Oh yeah, and he's gaslighting her with you were slipping anyway, and I had to do it to save. Like, yeah, if
Right.
you were gonna die, it was like either we both die or one of us dies, and that whole jazz. So
Right. Then the mother recovers enough from her head injury to stand up and kill the Justin Long character.
by
And then
ripping his
Tess,
face open, like she
Sure.
doesn't just strangle him. She puts her hands in his mouth and like opens him up like the creature from Stranger Things.
sure.
Which I'm like, all right, superhuman strength, got it. You can just rip a skull open, no problem.
Man, I can't imagine watching a horror movie with you. You far too logical to enjoy these, Kyle.
No, it's it's because
I mean, most movies, even with human bad guys, the human bad guys have some kind of weird, even if it's not superhuman strength, it's some kind of weird perception of where people will be, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like unnatural. There's always an unnatural element on some level.
How is Tess missing for 2 weeks and there's no like, well, she was last at this Airbnb, who
Right.
also with this guy. I mean, again, horror
100%.
movie, it's fine. But
Right.
I was like, like with her car parked in front of it still. Like there's lots of evidence that.
And people who knew she was in town.
Yeah, right. She's there for a job interview, right?
Mhm.
She's not in some cabin in the woods. Like,
Right.
yeah. Okay. Anyway, but that's fine. It's a movie. It's okay.
Right. So,
Like, I can excuse a lot of logic leaps, but it's that's creature strength is working. Anyway, keep going.
and that was a fun part of the movie in the end. It elevated the movie to like more of a survival thriller, a little bit of a chase movie almost.
Yeah. Yep.
And it brought it out of the darkness, which I thought was refreshing. You're outside and it's dark, but it's at least not in a cavern where you're just running through caverns and stuff.
Right, which looks great on streaming when you're in a pitch black cavern. You get those nice bands of.
Right, those black gradient bands.
Exactly.
Okay, so AJ's dead. Mother survived the fall. Tess shoots Mother dead.
Well, Mother's like, doesn't Mother cradle Tess?
Mm-hmm.
And is saying like go back or something, like she wants to bring her back or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
She wants
Tess
to take her back to the house.
Yeah, and it seems like Tess almost does it half out of her own survival and half out of mercy for this poor mother.
I think there was an element, but I think it was more like 90% survival, 10% mercy.
10%
You know what I mean?
mercy.
Because she was not going back to that house.
No, she was like not right. Okay, so you said that Tess in Act 1 going down into these mystery tunnels to save this guy she met a day ago
Mm-hmm.
makes sense because of her actions in Act 3. So what are her actions in Act 3 that inform you of her decisions in Act 1?
In Act 3, she has every opportunity to just run in a direction. She goes to the cops come, they don't help. She breaks
this
into
movie hates cops, by the way.
Yeah, she breaks into the house and then gets her car keys and has every opportunity to just drive away. But she knows that Justin Long's down there and that at any minute, Justin Long is done, basically. And so the same instinct that had her go downstairs to save Bill Skarsgård is the instinct to go down and save Justin Long. Now, Bill Skarsgård was a nice guy.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
The irony here is Justin Long is...
I don't know if it's irony. It's just like you could see that you'd want to save the character played by Bill Skarsgård. Keith is his name. You'd want to save Keith because he's a nice guy who just happens to be in the wrong place. And with Justin Long, it's already been established that he's kind of a jerk. And so maybe you wouldn't be as motivated to go save that guy over Keith. Save AJ over Keith. In her case, she has every opportunity to leave both of them behind. She doesn't. she goes down there.
Yeah, and I just would think that most people in the situation be like, I there's a crazy woman in these caverns. I'm not going back there. I, true, she does try and get police help, and the police kind of brush her off and
Right.
little
And I do think
commentary on that.
there's a calculation of like, I'm not going to go down there. I'm going to save myself and go get the police, and the police are going to help this guy.
Yeah,
And then when the police do not help the guy, the choice is, where do I got to go to get some help? And
Mhm.
how long is it going to take? Because Justin Long is screwed if nobody goes down there.
right, because he's probably dead.
Right. So
'Cause
I'm going to
we-
be the one.
We can assume that she killed Bill Skarsgård. The mother killed Bill Skarsgård because he was also resisting being a baby.
I don't even know if he was resisting. I think he's down there making a bunch of noise.
Oh, and she
Right?
probably just got. Yeah, because he says like something bit me.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So he had already kind of fought with her, and then he was being all loud. And so she came out of the shadows and did what she did.
Right.
The
Bashed his
original
head in.
character.
Did we mention that she's a naked woman with gray hair and messed up teeth and gray skin, and
I think we
Like,
said
it-
ghouly looking, which
she's
is
pretty horrifying looking. Like it was good
Sure.
makeup. Yeah.
it was good makeup. It was a good performance from whoever that was.
It's a male
It
actor.
worked.
I'm not sure. Obviously, it's prosthetics and everything. So
Matthew Patrick Davis, who does not even have a link on Wikipedia. So
I wonder how tall he is.
probably pretty tall.
Yeah.
I would imagine. Yeah. So I that was more a rundown of the movie than a review of it, but
I mean, but I think we gave our opinions and thoughts as we were doing the rundown. I think there's nothing wrong.
Sure.
I think we kind of people
Yeah.
have a good idea.
I enjoyed it. I think if you're kind of tired of the Blumhouse formula, that this is kind of refreshing. I think it takes some chances in ways that a lot of horror movies don't take. And while not every choice was like perfect, while the execution of every choice might have had like a better way, the way they picked for me was fine and added to it in general. For me, sounds like generally that's true for you, with the exception of the mother being unrealistically powerful.
Yeah, I think this movie had interesting ideas,
Mhm.
and I agree. It's directed well, and it's set up unconventionally, which are chances to be taken for a first outing.
Mhm.
And it definitely went in directions I was not expecting. Like I was not expecting Bill Skarsgård to die 45 minutes in by this underground ghoul. Like that
Sure.
that was okay. That got me.
If there
But-
was a female that was a copy of a copy of a copy, which I'm not sure has ever existed, are you willing to accept that it's possible they might be more powerful than your average human?
no, because I don't know how.
Why not?
Because usually when you just combine chromosomes like that, you're just getting like deformities.
You don't believe that it's possible that people can have a deformity that actually makes them more powerful?
I guess it's possible, right? Yes, I'm not saying it's impossible because that's how mutations happen. Yes,
Right.
there is a possibility. It just seemed like a pretty long stretch. Like usually you think about like 6 fingers or something like that. Webbed
Sure.
feet.
I mean, I'll agree.
I don't know. I guess I don't,
She's
I don't
also
think
the
about
only one
incest
down
very
there.
often. So
Yeah, she's also the only one down there that's alive, other than the bad guy from the
Yeah.
80s. So
And
evidently
there's
she's
even a tr-
dispatched everybody else too.
there's even a
down
sad
there.
moment where like Justin Long's chasing her and he approaches this door, which we then learn is his room, and
Mhm.
she won't even go by it. So like they do a good job of building sympathy for this, what is essentially a movie monster.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like he's the real monster. This guy down here who's been abducting women and videotaping them, and
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was, as horror movies go, pretty fun, twisty, unexpected things happen, and a little goofy here and there, but like all in good fun, goofy. And that's why it's a 4 for me.
I was thinking about Men when I was watching this movie.
Mhm.
Because another movie that we talked about, and I mean, Men has similar ideas, not so much of like assault, but just sort of male power dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
and also has a strange final 20, 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean,
men's
the final 20 minutes of Men is far stranger than this movie.
it's far stranger, but you're already like in this heightened universe.
Uh-huh.
So
But even
I,
in that universe, it's strange.
so I was on board with the ending of Men, where this movie seems to be taking place, like I said, pretty much in the real world. It's taking place in modern Detroit, and so
I still say you can explain away even the powerful ghoulie lady,
yeah,
the mother.
well,
You might not accept that explanation, but I think you could explain it away. I think they made an attempt to explain it away.
yeah, they said a copy of a copy of a copy. That was their
Right.
explanation, but yeah, I also don't want to think too hard about it because it's upsetting.
It is upsetting. Cool. Anything else with Barbarian? It was fun to see Kate Bosworth in there.
Who was Kate Bosworth?
She played Melissa, which
Who?
I think was one of the ladies in the 80s flashback.
Okay. The only two women I remember in the 80s flashback is the store clerk and then the woman who we assume is a victim,
Mm-hmm.
who he's following and scouting out.
Yeah, and then Sarah Paxton played the nursing video person.
Oh, in the video. Okay.
Yeah, she was in The Innkeepers. She's great in that. And she was in a bunch of movies in the 2000s.
And I'm assuming this movie is called Barbarian because, well, not
He's a
assuming.
barbarian.
He's a barbarian, and they live on Barber Street or something like that, wasn't it?
Oh, I didn't even see that, but
Yeah.
could be.
My my favorite piece of IMDb trivia for this movie
Mm-hmm.
is like Barbarian contains the letters Airbnb,
Oh yeah,
and then like 100 votes, 25 like it. Like it's one of those like people are like that's a stupid piece of trivia.
but it's true.
It's a true piece of trivia, but I don't know if it's intention. It's just like it's random.
Do they actually say the words Airbnb in the movie?
Yeah. He says Airbnb, and then Bill Skarsgård used like home away. Like that's how they end up in the same place, is they use two different apps to book it. So,
Okay,
but again, like
interesting.
at this point, do you trust Bill Skarsgård? Did he really book it, or?
Well, he shows proof on his phone.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and obviously he is what he says he is. That's part of the twist of the
Right.
movie. So,
Would you recommend this to people?
it depends on the person. A coworker recommended this movie to me.
Mhm.
He knows I watch movies.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he recommended it to me and another coworker. And he's like, all I'm gonna say is something happens 45 minutes in, which I did not expect.
Hmm.
So I like that's all I knew. And he said Justin Long's in it. Those are the only things I knew. So, and then I later talked to the other coworker who watched it, and I was like, I would not have recommended this movie to you. Like, I don't think it's a movie you can recommend to anyone.
Oh, I think it is. If you've watched, I don't know, what was the movie that you said legitimately scared you? The A24 movie.
Hereditary.
If you've watched Hereditary, you can handle this movie.
But would you
certainly.
recommend Hereditary to anybody?
If I recommended Hereditary to somebody, I would recommend this movie to them
Yeah.
as well.
Okay, so
I wouldn't recommend Barbarian to anybody.
Okay,
certainly.
that's good. Yeah,
But if I knew that they
people-
were already watching movies like that and like those movies on some level, then
Yeah.
I would recommend this one.
and even though I give it 2.5, I would still recommend it to people to see because obviously you got something out of it. If you look on Letterboxd, this has like a 3.8. So I'm on the minority side of not quite jiving with this movie.
Sure.
But I would not recommend this to anybody. Like even Zach, I don't think would like this movie.
I think Zach, I don't know what Zach likes or not. I can't predict it anymore. I give up.
I don't think he would like this movie. I think he would find it too depressing.
I think he would like the mechanics of this movie a lot. And I think
Like
he
the act
would
structure.
not. Yeah, the act structure
Yeah.
and the moving around in time. And I think he'd even like the tone of it on some level. I think it's probably a little too gross, possibly. for him.
I mean,
But-
yeah, I think once you see Justin Long being breastfed, he'll probably be like, I'm out.
No, Zach's watched some weird old movies. I mean, I can name a movie that Zach's watched that I will never watch.
What
And
is that?
I won't name it because I'm not trying to publicly shame him, but I know he's watched it.
Okay,
I'll be
tell me
happy
off
to
air.
talk to you about it off podcast,
Please
but
do.
I'm not
Please do.
looking to out him publicly.
Okay.
A very well respected, disgusting movie that I will never watch.
Okay. I have an idea what it is, but
Okay. And I'm sure he watched it because it was well respected. That's all
apply
I'll
on a
say.
list.
I doubt it's because he had any motivation other than that. All right. I didn't change your mind. I tried.
You did not change my mind.
I think time might be good to this movie when it comes to you.
Okay.
I think eventually, I don't think you'll be at a 4 ever with me, but maybe a half star bump in a year or so.
Maybe a 3.
Now that you know what it is versus what it isn't, a little time might soften you up a little bit.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Hereditary softened on me. Like Midsummer made Hereditary better.
Because you didn't like Midsummer, or you did?
I liked Midsummer. I didn't like so Hereditary was kind of the same thing with this movie, where I thought Hereditary had one tone going on for the first like 2 acts,
Mhm.
and then that third act goes like way different direction.
Sure.
And I think I was thrown off by the third act of Hereditary.
So you don't like twists?
No, I don't. It's not a twist thing. It's not the twist that happens. It's like Hereditary has some creepy moments the first
Mhm.
2 acts. Like obviously with the daughter, that's upsetting, and there's a lot of like eerie things going on and
Mhm.
like stark imagery. And then you get to like those final whatever how long it is, and like you got Toni Collette's gone full supernatural monster and
Mhm.
super gross things are happening. And it was just like I don't know if I like sudden tonal shifts like that.
Mhm. I mean, if they're not done well, I don't like them either. But
Yeah.
in that movie and in this movie, I feel like it's done well, even though it's done very differently.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if Hereditary had a Justin Long type transition in it.
Oh, like this
Where it's like, here's the darkest thing this movie has to offer with this guy that you just found out is really a nice guy.
Yeah.
Cut to sunny California.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean that was effective. Like something terrible happens and then bam, beach.
Right. Yeah, you expect one terrible thing to happen, then instead they totally redeem the guy you thought that was going to do that terrible thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then right after they totally redeem him, he gets dispatched in an awful way in front of you. Cut to sunny California.
Yeah.
Crazy. Cool. Well, that was episode 555.5
Mm-hmm.
of the Cinereelists. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Patreon supporters, we appreciate you. Hopefully you enjoyed this and your early access time. If you'd like to support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Cinereelists. Also, don't miss us on YouTube. Subscribe there. Leave us an Apple Podcast review, 5 stars only, or email us, heyguys@cinereelists.com, or follow us on social media on Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, or Instagram at Cinereelists, or follow me on my personal Twitter or Letterboxd account at YoJRB.
Find me on Letterboxd at PeterSKB.
And we will be back next time
With something.
on 556. I'm sure we'll talk about a movie.
Again, Patreons next week is different than main feeds next week, which is different than our next week. So I don't even know what time is anymore.
I don't know either. What is time?
What is time? It's a flat circle, man.
Let's do another 45 minutes contemplating what time is.
No, I think it's time to wrap it up.
All right. It is time to wrap it up. We'll see you guys next time. Until then, keep it cinereal.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.